Okay, good day. I am pleased to be broadcasting from Seoul, Korea. At the same time, it is with a very heavy heart that we are watching what is unfolding in Israel and the awful invasion by Hamas that is, has already killed hundreds of Israelis. And so the learning that we do in this hour will be in the tefillah and the prayer that we find a positive solution and move forward and defeat the terrorists and protect the country of Israel. And so with that, we'll get started. Yesterday, we finished the second chapter of Kiddushin, and we began the opening Mishnah of the third chapter. I'm going to share my screen, and we will go over that Mishnah. And so in that Mishnah, we detailed three cases. Case number one is an agent who married a woman for himself instead of the man who sent him. So not a particularly great agent. And we say that the woman is married to the agent. I don't know that we did the Tosos yesterday with Dove, so I thought I'd just jump into the Tosos. Take a look. Ve'im Tomer, my chidush yesh kan pshita. Isn't it obvious that if a person, if somebody appoints an agent to go and marry somebody for themselves, but then the agent specifically marries the person for themselves, that of course the sender isn't the one who's getting married; it's the one who did the agency. So Yesh Lomer, so therefore Tosas qualifies the situation. Yesh Lomer Demiri could go to Amar Hashliach Leisha Bisha Kiddushin Ploni Shalachene Lekatchecha Lekatchecha Lo. That is specifically, we're talking about a situation where the agent told the woman, I am here on behalf of this other man in order to marry you. But even though that's why I'm here. However, I want you to know that I want to marry you. And she understands that he was trying to marry her for himself. And that's got to be what we're talking about. The im locain lo haisa mekudeshes lo, because if she didn't know who she was marrying when the man said hareya mekudeshes lo, so then she wouldn't actually be married because it wouldn't have been a proper understanding. And so what is the chiddush here? That I would have thought hadika amar li, that when the man says to me, it means it means the for the needs of the person who sent him. Ka'amar kamash malandalo. So the point is, even though the man, the agent, was disclosed his role and made clear that he was supposed to be representing somebody else, when he then says, I want to marry you, it's understood, and she understands him to be referring to himself. That is a valid marriage of the agent to the woman and not the sender to the woman. Okay, so that was case number one in our Mishnah. The Ritva, by the way, offers two other potential answers. One is we don't, as to sort of what, this is kind of obvious. And so the point is that the first is that maybe we would think that you should punish the agent because he was a trickster. And we say, no, we don't actually punish this person. And number two is we don't say, maybe you might have thought to say, but we're not going to say that had the woman known that the agent was sent by the man who sent the agent, she wouldn't have accepted the agent's proposal. Meaning, in this case, we're assuming that, not like Tosos, that in fact the agent never told the woman. And you might think that, well, if the woman had known that she had this possibility of the agent working on behalf of the sender, then maybe she would have said, no, I don't want to marry you, the agent. I want to marry you. I want to marry the sender. So, but nonetheless, we're going to say we're not going to base our ruling on that. And we're going to say that, in fact, the agent is the one who successfully got married. So that was case number one in our Mishnah. Case number two in our Mishnah
is we have the first man saying that he wants to marry a woman after 30 days, and a second man goes and marries her in the meantime. Well, you know what? She's married to the second man and can even eat truma if the second man is a Kohen, meaning it's certainly a valid marriage. So we're not talking about, any kind of uncertainty. And now we'll go to the last case where we do deal with uncertainty. Now we have a case where the man says, the first man who's marrying says, if I want to marry you from now and after 30 days. So the question is from now and after 30 days a condition, a single condition that he's saying, I want to marry you from now, but it won't happen, it won't take effect until 30 days from now? Or is he saying, I want to marry you from now? Oh, no, I don't want to marry you from now. I want to marry you after 30 days. And so now a second man comes and she ends up married and not married to each, meaning that we're uncertain about the outcome. So whether she is marrying a Kohen or the daughter of a Kohen is marrying a non-Kohen, she's not going to be able to eat truma. Meaning if she was originally able to eat truma as the daughter of a Kohen, she's not going to be able to eat truma now that she's potentially married to a non-Kohen. And if she was marrying a Kohen, she's not going to be able to eat truma because maybe she's actually not married to that Kohen. So the bottom line is that we're in an uncertain situation, and we're going to now pick up with the Gemara, and the Gemara is going to begin by pointing out a brisa that adds commentary not included in our Mishnah. So let's take a look. So ha'omer l'chavei wrote, say with Kiddush, that go out and marry on my behalf, and is what a person says to the agent. So Tana, we learned in connection with this brisa, Masha asa asui, what the agent did is done. But he has been deceitful, and so as a result, that's not appropriate behavior, and you shouldn't do it. So v'tana didan. So halach nami katani halach rabbaramut. And what about our Tana? Does our Tana also agree to this? Yes, because halach, the fact that we said in our Mishnah, the halach v'kid shala atzmo, as opposed to just saying the kid shala atzmo, because we could have just left out this concept of going. The fact that we say that the agent went somewhere, that implies that he went and acted with beramaut, with trickery and deceit. And so as a result, even our Mishnah would agree that this is somebody who is a tricky person and you don't want to deal with them. So next, the Gemara then wonders about the wording of our first case as opposed to the case in an earlier Mishnah, because in our case we say ha'omer l'chavei ro. So mashna hacha dekatani ha'omer l'chavei ro. Whereas back on Daf Nun Amud Aleph, what do we say? Umayshna has returned to Nun Tet Amud Aleph now. Umayshna Hasam back on Nun Amud Aleph, Dikatani Ha'omer L'Shlucho. Then where we said that you're going to reach out to an agent, and in that case, that was a case in which a person asked an agent to marry his wife in a certain place, and we say that if the marriage happens in that place, it's valid. If it doesn't happen in that place, it's not valid. So the question is why in each of these two cases did we use different language? Why not use agent in both cases, or just a friend in both cases? So Hacha Rabusa Kamashmalan, that is actually teaching us something extra in each case. Vahasam Rabusa Kamashmalan. And so here and there, it is teaching us something extra. Haka Rabusa Kamashmalan, what is it coming to teach us over here? The fact that we use the term Chaveiro, the Itana Shlucho, because if I had just said agent, Hava Amina Shlucho, Hu Dahavi Ramai. Only an agent could be considered to be deceptive, because after all, you went ahead and the Gemara understands when we say agent, it means that you went ahead and worked something out with somebody in particular in order to try and figure out who was going to do the job and that the job get done. It wasn't sort of a happenstance. When we say chaveiro, the Gemara is understanding it as more of a happenstance, that you happened to see somebody and said, hey, why don't you go and do this agency for me? So here, I might have thought, if we had used the term agent, I might have thought that only then should we treat the person as if they were deceptive and inappropriate. To some chadaita, because the person who did the sending, he had organized everything so nicely so that this the agent would be able to do the job for him. And Sabar Avad Shluchuso, and he's thinking to himself, this guy's definitely going to do what I ask of him, because he worked, he arranged everything ahead of time. But aval chavero, but if it just happens to be happenstance that you happen to see somebody and you send him on a job to marry somebody, and then he ends up marrying the woman for himself, I might think the guy's, it just happened that I saw that the sender saw him, and so as a result, he might not have that same sense of reliance on the agent. So Ema Lola Habi Ramai, maybe I might say that he isn't really a deceiver, and so as a result, he isn't being deceptive, and so as a result, the Gemara, the Mishnah specifically chooses to use the language of Chabero here to tell you, yes, in fact, even in that case, we treat him as deceptive. Hasam Rabusa Kamashmulan, and over there in the earlier Mishnah, where the man is sending an agent in order to marry his wife in a particular location, because if we had just said over there that we're talking about a friend, Havamina, I might have thought, it's only because a friend, you didn't really organize this agency well ahead of time and haven't thought it all the way through. And so as a result, if that guy marries in the right place, it's marriage. And if he marries in the wrong place, it's not marriage. But because the point is the suffer low tarch. He's not gonna, because of course when the sender sends that guy out, his friend out, who he did not organize ahead of time to do the job in the first place, he's gonna assume that maybe he'll do the job, but he's only gonna do a little bit of work. He's not gonna do a lot of work, and if it means finding her in the wrong place, of course he's not going to do that. But aval shlucho de tarach. But when I set up somebody to be my agent, I assume that he's going to do the job and he's going to do whatever is necessary. So Mar makom hulo. Maybe I'm just really showing the agent where to go. But in fact, I really am empowering him to go anywhere. So Kamash Malan, that's why the Mishnah back on Nun Ahmad Aleph specifically uses the language of Shliach, because I might have thought that if you use the Shliach, he would be able to marry the man anywhere and not just in the right location, just in the location that the sender used. And the answer is no. If the sender sent even an agent, he has to only marry the person in the right location. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to tell 3 stories involving people taking actions for themselves instead of for the person who sent them. And we're going to wonder, because at least in some of these stories, each of these stories, actually, the person who did the action is a rabbi, and so as a result, or somebody who should be set at a higher standard for himself. So we're wondering, how is it possible that an agent could act in those situations as if he didn't have the agency job in the first place? So Rav and Chasida Azal Kedushay Li Itza Libre. Rav and Chasida had gone to a specific place in order to marry somebody for his son, the kid Shilanavshe, and he ended up marrying the woman himself. Well, Tanya, 1 second, how could that be? Masha Asui, what he did is done. El Shanag Bo Minag Ramaut, but he dealt with the sender deceitfully. How could somebody whose name is Rav and Chasida, who is supposed to act like a chassid, like appropriate person, like a beyond reproach, act in such a way that is inappropriate? So lo Yaveh. So we're dealing with a situation where the family of the woman refused to give the woman to the son, and so as a result, there was no way for Ravin to marry the woman for his son, but rather she could only marry himself. So but 1 second, he should have still told his son. So Savar Adahachi Vahachi Asa Inish. No, Ravin realized that if in fact he did so then in the meantime somebody else would marry her, and so as a result, that's why he chose to move forward. Okay, so that's story number 1. Story number 2. Rav. So Rav Barchan. Now this one's not about marriage, but he gave some money to Rav. Amar, Zavna nihale lahai ara. Go and buy me this piece of land. Azul Zavna lanashe. But Rav went and bought it himself. But Tanya, 1 second, Masha asa asoy. Isn't he acting deceitfully? And isn't that totally inappropriate? I mean, this is Rav that we're talking about. How could that be? So, Vaga de Alime Havale. This was a plane of strong people, of powerful people. And so as a result, the Rav Nahage Be Kavod, to Rav they gave honor, the Rabba Barbarchana lo Nahage Be Kavod. But Rabba Barbarchana was not treated similarly. And so as a result, it wasn't going to be possible for Rav to buy it on behalf of Rabba Barbarchana. They just weren't going to sell it to him. So he baile lo duye. So 1 second, Rav still should have told him. So sabar adahaki v'haki asa adahaki v'haki asa inish akrina v'zavinla said, if I were to do something, if I were to do that, he thought that if I would take all those steps, another person is going to come and take and buy it instead. So as a result, he was worried that it would be bought out from under him. So he bought it himself without notifying Rabbi Barbarchana. So Rav Gidel, case number 3, our third and final case, Rav Gidel, Haba Mahapek Bahi Ira, he was negotiating and to buy some land. Azul Rabbi Abba Zavna, Rabbi Abba came and bought it. Azul Rav Gidel Kablei Rabbi Zera. So Rabbi Gidel went to Rabbi Zera to complain. Azul Rabbi Zera B'Kablei Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. And Rav Zera went and explained the situation to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Amar Le, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha said, so Hamtin Ad Shiyala Etzlenu L'Regel. Well, let's wait until Rabbi Abba comes for a holiday, and we'll ask him then. Kisalik Ashkachei Amar Le. So when he came, so he found him, and he said, Ani Mahapik Wacharara. So it's similar to the way Natan, the Navi, approaches David Amelech and sort of gives an analogy and says, what do you think the ruling is? He's so too, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha learned from that and did the same thing. So if a poor man is trying to get a piece of cake, and another person comes and takes it away from him, what do you think of that other person? So Amar Le, Nikra Rasha, he's a wicked person. The Elamar, my Taima of it. Well, 1 second, why did you do that? Second, Amar Le, Dana, I didn't know. And so he explained that what was happening. And Rabbi Abba answers that I didn't know. I didn't know that Rabbi Gidda was trying to buy the land. Hashanami nisvi nehalimar. So, okay. So now that, you did that, you should give the land to Rav Gidel. So, sell the land to Rav Gidel. Amar Le, Rabbi Abba said, Zabuni lamas binanoi. The Ara Kamaisahi. I don't want to sell it to him because this is the first piece of land that I ever bought. And the Loma Samno Milsa, and it won't be a good sign if I turn around and sell it right away. That will indicate something wrong with me as a purchaser, and maybe people won't want to deal with me. So Ibai, I'm happy to give it to him as a gift. So Rav Gidel lo nachas, but Rav Gidel didn't like that idea because diksiv v'sonei matanos yichyah. That there's an idea that one who despises gifts shall live. This is a pasuk in Mishlei, and the point is that that attitude is the attitude that Rav Gidel wanted to demonstrate, and so Rav Gidel didn't want to take it as a gift. So Rav Abba lo nachas la mishum dahapik. But Rav Abba wouldn't go and work on the land because he thinks he didn't want to take it away from Rav Gidel. And lo mar nachas la, lo mar nachas la. So neither of them ended up working it. Umiskarye al ara derabanan. And so it ended up being called the land of rabbinical students. Now Rashi here says ara derabanan. After the Talmidim, that it was essentially left open for the Talmidim to do whatever they needed to on that. All right, so those were the 3 stories, and now we turn to the next case, so the second case of the Mishnah. Again, what happens if, and the Gemara is going to wonder, what happens if no one else comes within the 30 days? So again, case number 2 is that I say to the man says, from now. It says that they're going to marry the woman after 30 days. And now nobody came in the meantime. What happens? When does the marriage take effect? If nobody else comes within those 30 days, what's the story? That she's married even though the money that was used for the Kiddushin has already been consumed. My time, what's the reason? Hani Zuzi, Lola Melba Damu, Lola Pikadon Damu. The money that was given to her is neither a loan nor is it a deposit. And so the Pikadon Lo Damu, it's not like a deposit because Pikadon Birshusa Demara Kamas. Because the deposit remains owned by the owner of the object and not the person who's watching it. Bahani Birshusa Dida Kamas Akli. But the coins that she ate, those belong to her. So Milva Nami Lodam. And yet at the same time, it's not like it was a loan because Milva Lahotsa Nitna. A loan is given to be spent. But honey, the Torah's Kiddushin Yahivna Nahala. But these were given to her in order to marry and not in order to effectuate a loan. And so as a result, even if the money doesn't then exist, even if she's used up all the funds, it is still a valid marriage. Lo ba'achar b'kidsha, b'chazraba. Now, mahu. Now, what happens? Again, we're talking about a situation where a man says, I want to marry you after 30 days. And she says, yes, that's great. And then within the 30 days, before the time is up, she changes her mind. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chazeres, Asi Dibor Umavatal Dibor. She can undo it because her initial statement, her initial agreement was just words, and words can undo other words. Rish Lakish Amar, no, Eino Chazeres. Lo Asi Dibor Umavatal Dibor. No, words can't just undo other words. So Asay Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. So now we're going to have some back and forth between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish to determine whether or not there's an ability to undo this marriage. Again, man says, I want to marry you after 30 days. She says yes, and then she changes her mind. So let's take a look. So question that Rabbi Yochanan asks, detail. When it comes to the owner of, if I send a messenger out, as I send an agent out in order to take truma for me, and then I tell the agent, and then I nullify that agent. That's the betel. If I nullify that agent, if I nullify the agent before he's taken the truma, and truma so truma, then whatever he takes is not valid. So this is a situation where initially I sent out an agent using words, and then I undid the agency using words, and we see that the latter set of words undoes the first set of words because dibur mavatal dibur. So Reish Lakish explains, no, shinin nesinas mos liyad isha dechimasa damu below asi dibur umavatal masa. That no, when I say that it's a dibur and dibur, and that's the problem, it's not quite that simple. That really the situation of Kiddushin has two components. The man has given her the money and she has accepted it verbally. So because of that, it's as if there was a masa associated with her dibur. So as a result, that's why I don't think there's an ability of the woman to undo it. Esvei, again, another challenge to Reish Lakish. So hashaleach get liishto v'higia b'shaliach. So again, if a man sends a get to his wife, but he was able to catch up and cancel the agency before the get was delivered. Oshishalach acharav shliach v'amar lo get shenasati lecha batalhu. I'm nullifying the get that was given to you. Harei zeh batal v'hanasinas get liyad shliach dechinasinas maos liyad isha dami v'ketani harei zeh batal. Well, here too. Now you have, first of all, this is closer to the case of a marriage because the man, the agent, the husband had to give the get to the agent. Well, that's a giving of something into the hand of the agent. And so that's just like the giving of the money to the woman. And yet, notwithstanding the fact that there was both an action and a statement, the Mishnah in Maseches Gittin says that there was an ability to undo it. And yet you, Reish Lakish, say you can't undo this situation. So how come you can undo the situation with respect to this divorce, according to the Mishnah in Gittin, but the woman can't undo the marriage if she agrees to be married and the man says after 30 days and it's still within 30 days and she wants to change her mind. So Hasamnami kol kamad lo mata gita liyada dibor v'diborhu. No, even though there was a giving of the get, it really is just words and words. So I am not going to treat the giving of the get to the agent, Reish Lakish is saying, as any kind of special thing. There is no significance to it. And so as a result, I am not going to treat that as anything different from words undoing words. So Esvei Reish Lakish l'Rebbe Yochanan. So now Reish Lakish turns it around and says, I've responded to your questions, but now it's your turn to respond to mine. So Kol HaKelim Yordim Lidei Tumasan b'machshava. That when it comes to whether or not an item that is becoming a utensil. So if you make something into a utensil, then all of a sudden, when it's a utensil, it now has the ability to become tamei. But when it was just the raw ingredients, it did not. And so when does that utensil have the ability to be considered complete? It's when you think that this is the stage at which you're going to complete it. Ve'ein olim midei tumasan ela b'shinoi ma'isa. But in order to once again have the item, if it had become tamei, if you want to try and make a new object out of it, you need to make some kind of physical change, as we turn to Nun Tedam Bet. So Maisa, Motzi Miyad Maisa, Miyad Umiyad Machshava, that you need an action to undo an action plus thought. Machshava ain't Motzi and Lo Miyad Maisa, Lo Miyad Machshava. But a thought alone is not sufficient. So Bishlama Miyad Maasa Lo Mapka. So it's understandable why a thought can't reverse a positive act. Lo Asi Dibor Umavatal Masa. But Ella miyad machshava miyad tapik. But you, according to you, Rabbi Yochanan, doesn't this allow a thought to undo another thought? After all, there was a thought that created the object and said that the object is considered capable of becoming subject to Tuma because you had decided that this was the final stage of the production of the item. And now, why not allow a reversal of that thought to be sufficient to change that? So, shiny machshava Tuma. So, Rabbi Yochanan responds that the thoughts in connection with Tuma are different to Chimas because those thoughts are like an action. Ukidura Papa, Rami Ksiv Kiyitain, the Korean Kiyutan, that when it comes to food becoming susceptible to tuma only after a liquid, one of the 7 liquids that make something capable of becoming, make a food capable of becoming tamei. So only if one of those liquids touches it. And we have kiyutan, and we read it as kiyutan. So it says kiyitain when it was if he shall place, but it says kiyutan if it should be placed. So how do we understand these two lines? Kiyutan dumya de kiyitain. That when we say it's kiyutan, it's got to be comparable to the kiyitain. Mayitain denichale, when just as when the owner himself touches the liquid to the item, it's because he wants it to happen. Kiyutan denichale. So too, it has to be if some third party, if it just rains on the item or something, then it also needs to be something that is wanted by the owner. So Rav Zvid, and so as a result, we see that in this case, there is a thought that is special that in connection with something becoming tamei. And therefore, it's not just a thought. It's actually treated like more than a thought. It's thought almost like an action. And so as a result, That is why in the connection with Tuma, you need to have both thought and action to undo what otherwise appears to be an action. So Rav Zvid, Masne Lahashmaitza Aha. Rav Zvid taught this discussion not in connection with our Mishnah, but rather V'chein Hi Shenasna Rishus L'Shlucha L'Kadsha. V'holcha Hi V'kidsha Es Atzma Im Shelah Kadmu Kiddushin Beam Shel Shlucho Kadmu Ein Kiddushin. So Rav Zvid said that the debate between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish was about the following Mishnah, that it was not it was about a woman who appointed an agent to accept marriage, but the woman wanted to retract her appointment to the agent before the agent accepted the marriage on her behalf. So lo kidsha es atzma v'chazra. So the woman who appointed the agent did not accept her own Kiddushin, but instead tried to retract. So Mahu, what's the halacha? So again, so the Mishnah itself says that a woman who authorizes the agent to accept a get for her, and then that agent, and then she herself accepted a Kiddushin from another man. So the question is, whose Kiddushin took effect first? If the agent's Kiddushin happened first, well, then she's married to the person who the agent married. And if her Kiddushin was her first, then she's married to her Kiddushin. And the agent will be, agent's Kiddushin will not be valid. But what happens if we don't have two people marrying, but rather she sent out the agent and then she said that she changed her mind? So there, again, Rabbi Yochanan says choseres, Rish Lakish Amar Eina choseres. Rish Lakish says she can't retract. Rabbi Yochanan Amar choseres, Asi dibur muvatel dibur. Rish Lakish Amar Eina choseres, lo asi dibur muvatel dibur. And again, Esri Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish bitel im ad shelo tarim bitel ein truma so truma. So in second, again, if the person who sent out somebody to take truma for him nullified the agency before he actually took the truma, well, then it's not a valid truma. So Amarava, Rava explains on behalf of Reish Lakish, that we're talking about a situation where the owner went ahead and separated truma from his pile before the agent did it. To Havale Maisa. And so that became an act. So Eisei Reish Lakish, and Reish Lakish asks to Rabbi Yochanan, Kol HaKelim Yodim L'Dei Tumasa B'Machshava, when it comes to all different kinds of utensils that get made, they can be determined to be final based on the thoughts that you want it to be like this, and therefore it's a final product, and therefore subject to tuma. The enolim tuma son elabashino masa, but it takes an action in order to actually change it. So ma'asa miyad masa umiyad machshava. So we see an action undermines an action plus a thought. But machshava ena motzia lo miyad maasa v'lo miyad machshava. So bishlama miyad maasa lo mapka. It makes sense why a thought can't undo an action, but lo asi duburum vatamasa, because a speaking can't, words aren't as powerful as an act. But ela miyad machshava miyad topic. But at least the words should be able to undo a thought. So how could you, Rabbi Yochanan, say that that's not case? So again, Amrle. Shiny machshava de tuma dechimai sedami. Again, the thoughts in connection with tuma are like action. Kidra Papa, as Rav Papa said, as we saw earlier, Dira Papa Rami, Ksiv Kain Ki Yitain, the Karina Ki Yutan. So Haketza. So we have this pasuk that says when a liquid goes on the food, it's written kiyitin that he's placing it, but it says kiyutan that it has been placed, meaning it doesn't make a difference whether the owner did it. But how do we say make it all fit? So kiyutan dumya diyitin, that it has to be that when it was somebody else who put the liquid on the food and made it potentially susceptible to batuma, it only works if the owner of the food wanted it. Ma yitin denichale. Af yu tandami danichale. So Ese Rabbi Yochanan l'Reish Lakish, and now we have the last challenge, and this is going to be a successful challenge. Rabbi Yochanan challenges Reish Lakish. 1 second, Hashaleach get leishto. If you send a get to your wife, and then he gets to the agent before the get is delivered. Shashalach acharav shaliach, or he sends an agent after the first agent, and the second agent gets to the first agent before the first agent makes the delivery. But amrlo getchin asati lechabatalhu, and I nullify and the get is nullified. Hareze batal, it's nullified. And so, how could you say, Reish Lakish, that that you need an action and that it's not enough to have a thought? Here we have a thought, and a thought is sufficient to undo the effort to marry, the effort to divorce. So to Yukta the Reish Lakish, to Yukta. In fact, this is a refutation. The Hilchasa Kivase de Rabbi Yochanan, and the halacha is in fact like Rabbi Yochanan, that you can use words to negate a previous set of words. Now, 1 second, and even in the first case, where we first understood that the disagreement was about the Kiddushin after 30 days, because now in that situation, maybe you could say that it's a little different, because there's the act of giving the money to the woman, that we can make that almost like an action by the woman herself. Even so, we're going to accept Rabbi Yochanan's perspective and say that words come to negate earlier words. And this highlights why it was that the second challenge was valid, but the first challenge was not. Because when we went through it the first time, there was the man gave money to the woman. And so as a result, when the woman accepted, it was both an action plus plus the words. But in the second case, where we're dealing with where the machlokas is not about where the man is marrying her, but where the woman sends out an agent in order to accept a marriage. So then, in that situation, and she's undoing it before she's saying that she wants to retract her decision to marry the particular man that she sent out her agent in order to accept a marriage from. It is both of those are definitely words. And so certainly if that's where the machlokas is, then we have completely reversed Reish Lakish's position. We have shown that Reish Lakish's position is fully refuted. Okay, so now, although we've shown that that there is that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, so we're going to highlight a problem with that approach. So kasha hilchasa a hilchasa amrat hilchasa Rabbi Yochanan. You just said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, but we also have the Kaimalan Hilchasa Rav Nachman. But we also say that the halacha is like Rav Nachman in the following debate. There was a question. If the get that has been returned has been canceled, right? So again, in the situation where a man negates a get given to an agent, Rav Nachman says he can still use the get to divorce his wife, as follows. Rav Nachman Amar Choser Umagarishbo. He can still use that get to divorce his wife if he were to change his mind again. Rav Sheshes Amar Einu Choser Umagarishbo. And Rav Sheshes says you can't. The Kaimalan Hilchas Akavasi to Rav Nachman, and yet we say the halacha is like Rav Nachman. And so here we see that using the same get to effect a divorce later shows that words don't negate words. Meaning, if in fact the negation of the original divorce to document the get was done with words, and we say that negating of words one word can undo another set of words, so then the get itself should be invalid. And yet Rav Nachman says that it is valid. So how could that be? So Mihi devatle mitorah shliach, mitorah's get lo batli. So we clarify that when we say that the person sent out an agent afterwards and tried to cancel the get, it doesn't mean that he was trying to annul the document itself. He was trying to annul the agency of sending out somebody to give the get. And so as a result, the document itself is still valid. Okay. So the Mishnah had said that when a second man comes within the 30-day period, the woman is married to the second man, but the Gemara is now going to qualify this with a debate. So Mikudeshes Lasheni, so Amar Rav Mikudeshes Lasheni La'olam. When we say that the man, if a person man number one says to a woman, marry me after 30 days, and then a second man comes within the 30-day period and marries her immediately. So according to Rav, the second man is the woman's husband forever. That doesn't make a difference what happens after you get to day 30. But that isn't Shmuel's perspective. Shmuel Amar, no, Mikudeshes Lasheni ad lamed yom. She's married to the second guy until day 30. But la'achar lamed yom, Pake Kiddushin Sheni, V'gamrei Kiddushin Rishon. The first man's Kiddushin becomes final, and the second man's Kiddushin becomes totally nullified, because it turns out that it's retroactive to the day one, and so as a result, it's as if the second man never had the opportunity to marry the woman. So Yosef Rochista v'Kakashkelan Kiddushin Sheni b'may Pake. I don't understand. How did the second man's Kiddushin become nullified? So Amarle Rav Yosef explained, Mar Aresha Masnela. With respect to this dispute between Rav and Shmuel, you are teaching it in connection with the second teaching of the Mishnah. And so that is why you have this problem, because you're right. There is no mechanism through which the second man's marriage to the woman somehow becomes undone. So it can't be that all of a sudden, when you get to day 30, the second man's marriage becomes invalid and the first man's marriage becomes effective. So rather, Rav Yehuda, the Kashile, and therefore you have this difficulty. But Rav Yehuda, Aseifa Masnela, Rav Yehuda said, no, it's not. This debate between Rav and Shmuel is not in the case of marry me after 30 days. It's in the case of the last section of the Mishnah, where it's marry me from today and after 30 days. And so Rav Yehuda, Aseifa Masnela, below Kashile, and he didn't have any difficulty. So how does he not have any difficulty? So let's take a look. So so we say it's from now and from after 30 days. So Amar Rav Mikudeshes ve'ena Mikudeshes la'olam, meaning that the status of the woman is that she is considered married and not married to each of the men forever. And meaning that she will need a divorce from both of them in order to marry somebody else. Shmuel Amar, no, Mikudeshes ve'ena Mikudeshes ad Ella ad lamed yom. She's only married and not married. She's only in this uncertain position from the time that the second man marries her until day 30. But la'achar lamed pakei kedusha sheni v'gamrei kedusha rishon. But then after 30 days, so then the second man's kedushin is nullified and the first man's is set up. So l'Rav, and why is this? Because l'Rav because Rav was uncertain whether the language of from now and after 30 days was intended to be a single condition, meaning that I want to marry her from this moment, but it will only be definitive after 30 days, or when he said from now and then and after 30 days, he really just meant and after 30 days. he was trying to undo his reference to from now. But Shmuel, pshitale to tanahave. But for Shmuel, it was definitely intended to be a stipulation of from now and after 30 days. And so as a result, when you get to the after 30 days, so then there's no more uncertainty about the first man's marriage. It's definitely a valid marriage. And so as a result, the second man's marriage, which was in an uncertain situation, is now no longer in an uncertain situation because it's not actually undoing a valid marriage. It's undoing something that never existed in the first place. Now, we are not done with Rav and Shmuel, as we're going to continue tomorrow with the Gemara wondering whether this debate is also a debate among Tanaim. And so stay tuned for tomorrow's daf.